originally at 3:35.
Ah, there we go. So, I have a question for all of you. Well, first off, I asked you a long time ago to make sure that you were signed up for the AP exam, or sorry, into the college board. I sent that stuff out a long time ago. Some of you have been getting emails to get that set up, so make sure you do. We have the computer off for. Oh, the calendar, okay. The calendar, I have my Soviet propaganda calendar right over here.
Different year. What does that say?
That's it somewhere. We'll own the whole world. For 1935. The best part about this calendar is it's very European, so it's Monday and Sunday's over here, so it starts here, and they count the weeks. So they go through, okay, we're now in the 45th week of the year.
I feel like that would definitely help.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it kind of shortened up the. It seems like we'd be moving instead of by months. Very good point. That's not bad. Let's do it. Okay, so here in the 44th week of the year. Only 10 weeks. That's nothing.
And the coronavirus is
It's gone. Yeah, it's gone. Everyone knows you can't have a pandemic in 2021.
They might have a vaccine in
Yay.
a vaccine.
There's a chop.
I think every other week an article comes out about a vaccine coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Well, let's put it this way. There's an incentive for them to say they have a vaccine out. Because does anybody know what happened to the value of Pfizer's stock?
Oh, it goes up as they
Yeah,
overcharge for the
so
vaccine.
they have a financial incentive. We have a vaccine that will cure everything. Stock goes up.
Don't worry, when June 4th takes office, we won't wear these masks.
I don't know. He definitely was elected on getting rid of some of these restrictions, so there's a shot. And you know what?
Maybe we'll go back to school to get sick.
Huh?
Maybe we'll go back to like full.
Yeah, let's just.
I'll probably still wear a mask.
Oh, that's the smart decision.
If that happens, it's already spreading like
Oh,
wildfire.
yeah. We're gonna
Yeah.
be dead, isn't it?
Reading about what's happening when there's places that are ordering. What I read was it's big business that now have refrigerated morgues. Trucks? Yeah, that's like big business now. You know things are pretty tough. It's pretty awful.
Yeah, a man came into my
Well,
office
is it awful?
yesterday without-
On that happy note, since we're on happy notes right now, here we go. So, what was that movement? That Duke, it's more like a philosophy that saw all the, capitalism and all this science, they called empiricism, and people, the way people were trying to make a living, and they thought they would withdraw. Focus on individuals, focus on nature. What's that called? Yeah. Yeah. Who's the person I named that was, he didn't like invent it, but most best known for it? Yeah.
Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Ralph Waldo Emerson, yep. It is a good name, isn't it? This is a very New England thing. Has its roots in I mentioned those liberal churches like the Unitarians or the Universalists. And they also transcend, go back to nature, but what kind of movement is it? It's very much this idea that the attitude towards the rest of the people are what? Average people.
They are.
Yeah, they're very elitist, and everyone else are money grubbing or stupid. Who would write that article that you must disobey unjust laws on civil disobedience? And originally it's because you just want to pay a poll tax. Someone said who? Thoreau. Yep. Yeah, I know it's one of those a little awkward. Or is it Brew? Henry David Thoreau. And yeah, he would just show up at people's home and stay for 6 months. This is pre, there weren't a lot of hotels. If you traveled, you'd stay with somebody for a few days,
So he couch surfed.
Yeah, that's what he did. He was an interesting guy. I don't know if I like him. But this is a very elitist attitude. And what is that movement called? I showed you that, like paintings of individuals. And the transcendentalists would kind of look back to the way It was, yeah, you remember? Yeah, the Romantics, and I like Romantic art, but it's a lot of paintings of old castles, a lot of paintings of countrysides, and lots of paintings of guys standing on mountains. It's mine. A lot of paintings of just like a flat plane in one tree, the individual. And I showed you the great Turner painting of the train. If you go to the London or the British National Gallery, it's like, wow. So, the Second Great Awakening, a big radical shift, a reaction to the Industrial Revolution. Do you remember what I told you they called the preachers? They had a name for them. Because they preached, when they went, they gave these fire and brimstone sermons. Oh, before we get to that, what was that district of New York where they had the fire and brimstone sermons? They're best known for, yeah, the burnt over district of New York. And these preachers, they would give them, and they actually called them charismatics because they didn't exactly, they weren't ministering because of necessarily, which was very, very big in the Puritan era, go through the Bible very carefully, or Catholic, where you have dogma, where you do these certain things. If you're Catholic or Episcopalian, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is very emotional and bring people up, and it's very personal. And in these troubling times, what do people in these troubling times, like right now too? But when there's this big steamroller called the Industrial Revolution coming at people, and they're scared and nervous and insecure, what do they look for? So where's that hope going to come from? What I told you that they look towards what? That's when they talked about
Salvation.
yeah, salvation, and that's where you get the term the rapture. And there's all these groups, like the Millerites, and they thought what was going to happen. In fact, they even predicted what would happen. They're the ones I showed you the picture of them going up on the roofs. What's that? They thought they'd go up the roof, they'd all be taken up to heaven. And they were so sad when the world didn't end. It should tell you a lot about them. They were very upset that they didn't go to heaven and everybody else died a fiery death. It's an interesting idea. So,
Didn't that happen like last decade?
oh, this happened a number of times.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, my dad's grandpa lived right across from one of the places where they bought a comic, and they all ate something they never rolled up. It was right
Oh,
across
Heaven's
the road.
Gate. Yeah,
I
Heaven's
remember
Gate.
watching all the bodies being taken out. He lived
Really?
right across from it.
Wow. I mean, that was, yeah, they all committed suicide because they go on the Hail Bob Comet.
There's been a lot of.
Oh,
In special topics, we do a unit on, always do a second semester. There's always been a number of cults in the US, and that's one of the things we do.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was talking to my dad about it. He's like, oh yeah, my church was right across from that. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So this is not, whenever there's times of great insecurity, and, yeah. And so we talk about the Protestant work ethic, and this hard work. Oh, who funded much of the Second Great Awakening? Who gave them money? Yeah, they encouraged this. They wanted that attitude, don't complain about your job because you're going to heaven. And this is one of the things, it doesn't matter, I'm not making a value judgment on these very evangelical religions. Oh, by the way, have you ever heard the term fundamentalist? That term wasn't around yet. That term would come about in the teens of the 20th century. And so somebody else asked that first period, what would you call it, the term fundamentalist? Not yet. That's coming. And, oh, that's where else the term born again comes about with this idea of salvation with the Second Great Awakening. And the Methodists and Baptists began in Britain. Industrial Revolution, yeah.
Where did the term evangelical come
Oh, that's as old as Christianity. Because evangelical means just encouraging people to join.
Okay.
That's all that means. And Christianity, from its very beginning, was very open to converts.
Yeah.
As opposed to, let's say, Judaism, where its roots came from, which were not. So Islam is very evangelical too. But Christians always think of that as Christians, but it's actually anybody. So we got the Protestant work ethic. This is the Puritan work ethic. I think we ended class with this, didn't we? These three things. And the big thing is who like this? Sure. And the thing is, all these are virtuous. But what a way to manipulate people. Play on what, the desire to be good people, but it also benefits their bottom line. And so there would be a lot of reaction to this, because by implying you need to work hard, be temperate, and punctual means you need to do that. That implies what about you right now? Yes, and that means you're immoral. By pushing this on people implies that people are immoral. Did everyone catch that? That is a big deal, because people don't like to be called immoral. And so there's a lot of resistance, especially people who aren't, let me throw something out, Protestant. What if you're Catholic? This is a direct attack on you, implying that since you're not Protestant, you're not really a hard worker, late, and a drunkard, which would be the norm for what they would call Catholics. Protestants would. Many Protestants. And so this was very much resisted. Nobody likes to be told this, and nobody likes to be manipulated. Of course, it really works well when they don't know they're being manipulated, but that's another story that I've mentioned before. And so, out of this, be a radical shift, another reaction, urbanization. If you're going to move, this is the reaction, you move to the cities. That's where the jobs are. We know this now. Look at 1820, this map. The size of the circle is the size of the city. There's only one city over 100,000 people. And that's, okay, New York City was actually 3 cities there. New York was Manhattan. There's Brooklyn and the Bronx are also separate cities. They wouldn't unify until the 1880s to the massive city of New York. But everybody kind of put them together. But a few cities, New Orleans, notice almost nothing in the South. Look at Chicago. I mean, it was basically just a pier and a few huts. 40 years later, the Industrial Revolution, right? That's when it all hit. Did everyone see this? All these people moving to the cities. Now, there's lots of reasons why they moved, but look at Chicago's now a massive city. Chicago is about 100,000. It'll be over 1 million by the end of the century. These towns are growing fast, and it's focused here. Industrial bases, but not just the industry. Then you need everything else that goes with the industry. All the services, the people who go there, so they move there to provide services or other occupations, to whether it be carpenters or whatever, you name it, financial centers, schools, and look at the South. It's pretty noticeable. It's really noticeable now, isn't it? One city, New Orleans. St. Louis is really, it's a border town. If you've ever been there, it's a both northern and southern town. It's a cool place. I like St. Louis. Yeah.
What's South Pass? Is that a city that still exists?
I don't know why this map has South Pass. That's just a pass over the Continental Divide. I have no idea why they said in this map, let's, like we have South Pass, Missouri River, Mississippi River. Okay. All right. And if you ever get to Missouri, there's St. Louis, and there's Kansas City, and then the rest is like a totally different country. Like literally a different country. It's a very interesting place. Of course, then we live in Montana, so it's radically different from, let's say, we go from Helena or Missoula to Freud. Okay, so, but why? What's the reaction? People are moving to cities. Oh, first off, look at the population density in the north. It's pretty shocking. But think about it. If you're an immigrant coming to the United States, where do you go if you have nothing? You go where there's jobs. If you have to migrate within the United States, you don't move to another small little rural area where you're not going to find work. You go to the town, just like today. If you're thinking about when you graduate from high school or college or whatever, and think about, well, I'm going to go find a job, but there's not one in Helena, you're probably not going to move to Three Forks. Nothing against Three Forks. I actually think Three Forks is a neat town and a really pretty area. But where are you going to move to? Townsend. No. Yeah. Or
California.
yeah, Seattle, right? or you move to bigger cities. And so look at this reaction. Because of the Industrial Revolution, cities grew, and with that, look at the changing occupations. It is much more commercial, urban, and the north. Look at the percentages of agricultural workers, and it's startling, isn't it? Almost 80% in 1820. Now, this is somewhat they were doing census data, so you put down your occupation when you do the census. It's still not, but just barely over 50% by 1860. And look at all these different ones. Manufacturing could be any number of positions. And trade, what is trade? It's pretty vague, but that's markets, stores, shipping, and service. Remember I kept talking about like taverns, and I'd say that's a place you would eat. It's kind of all purpose, and say it's also like a hotel for people who don't have much money. All of a sudden now you have an explosion of hotels, restaurants, everything else. By the way, were there motels then? No, because what's a motel? It's a hotel for motorists. A motor hotel. Motel. That's where that comes from. Look at you. You're cool. So, all this, service, transportation, you name it. And this is a big shift. What's going to happen to the population of the north? And not only that, don't you need to change the way people live together? There's going to be more government in the north. Why? If people are on top of each other, you need rules. If you're living apart as farmers, yes, I know you still need rules, but it's different. Why do you think there's a police force to control the population? Okay, it started in a lot of ways. Remember I told you about for Christmas. Why am I doing this? But also, that's where the people were. More people, more different classes tied together. Fire departments. Why do you think we need fire departments? Garbage collection. You don't think about it as much, but you can just throw it in the backyard and burn it someday, which is kind of what they did. In the cities, you don't have garbage collection, and you don't have a city. New York City, there's been a couple garbage worker strikes in the 60s and the 70s, and it was a week in 1976, and bags of garbage was piled up 4 or 5 stories high in the streets. You don't have a city. And so that is a big reaction to the Industrial Revolution. Not only that, immigration. And a new wave of immigrants would come. I'll make sure this is all working. Yep. A new wave of immigrants. Most of them aren't coming from England or Scotland or Wales anymore. They're coming from all over, as you can see from this graph right here. And still a lot from this is Great Britain, everything but Ireland. But Ireland and what is now southern Germany. There was no Germany yet. So we're talking about German-speaking people. There's Prussia was the leading kingdom, there's Bavaria, there's all these different kingdoms. Austrians are German-speaking people, but huge influx here. And there's 2 big reasons why. Famine, which I'll talk about in just 1 second, and there are actually a couple of famines in the 1830s and the 1840s, and the other one is industrialization. So the Industrial Revolution began in Britain, then in the US, and then started in Germany. What is now Germany? Remember I told you there was a shortage of labor in the United States. So there weren't as many people reacting, upset, or losing their jobs because of factories. In Germany, yeah, people lost everything because of factories. They lost the way they made a living before, and it was changed by machines. What happens to them? They starve, they go to the cities, or they get the heck out. They don't want to live in the city. They don't want to be a factory worker. Of course, what do they do when they get to the United States? Live in the city. Yeah, a lot of them, not all. The partridges, my English, but the first part about the actual name itself, sorry, that name came in about 1650 in Massachusetts. a great grandfather. But then on the other side, and they too were English and Germans, they came in, a bunch of them came in this era to the United States. Then some of them came after the Civil War. Lots of partridges running around. Don't trust them. Just don't trust them. But they left because of the factories. And countries were trying to push them out. Unemployed, poor, unemployed people, desperate, revolt. Get your excess population out. Britain had a similar issue. And Ireland is a little bit different. Ireland is because of two famines. The biggie is in the 1840s. And this is because of what the English did to Ireland. When England would finally conquer Ireland, this is under Cromwell in the 17th century, they fully conquered it. They kicked all the native-born Irish off the land, and they started having these massive plantations where they would grow grain and ship it back to England. And how did Irish survive? What did they have to grow? What great crop from the United States? Because potatoes grow anywhere. Who's growing potatoes? And what do you have to do to grow a potato? Yeah, what you an eye for? Eye develops, cut, you chop off the eye, drop it in, and you grow a clone of that potato. That's what it literally is. And potatoes grow anywhere, and you can survive on potatoes. There's enough protein and other nutrients to survive on potatoes. Okay, you might not be that happy. You're going to be very starchy. But you can live on it. But if they're all clones, that means they're genetically not as strong. So when we start cloning people, don't forget that. Your clones will not be as strong. Or maybe you aren't as strong, because we could really know you're a clone. But anyways, maybe you're all clones. Think about that, huh? But if it's a clone, they're really susceptible to fungus. And what this fungus, we call it potato blight. If it hits, you might have the leaves that shoot up, look just perfectly like a healthy potato, pull it out of the ground, and what do you get?
Black spots.
Yeah, just the slime. It would just like this ooze would come out. Not as tasty. And if everybody's relying upon potatoes, they starve. The population of Ireland would drop by 60% in 18 years. Yeah, by horrific starvation or people going to the United States. And I should add one thing. They were still growing food. Remember the wheat I told you about? Well, there was a potato blight in England too. So they just shipped all that food to England and let them starve. There's a lot of reasons why the Irish do not like the English, and they're justified to this day.
I don't think anyone likes the English. I don't think anyone likes the English.
English do.
But really, do they?
So look at this huge influx of population. The potato famine, the famine died, so that's why it went away. But they're still susceptible to potato blight. Potatoes are still all clones. That's why it's hard to find organic potatoes, because they just have to dump herbicides and pesticides in them, and to just dump them. And it's one of those things where everyone's saying someday that fungus will arrive that we can't kill. And don't be thinking, oh no, French fries. That would be bigger than that. So you have this new wave of immigrants coming over. And the thing about it is, they're different. They have different cultures, different diets. They drink different religion. And that is going to breed another reaction, a huge influx of nativism. There's already been nativism. Remember the Alien and Sedition Acts. But nativism. And there's two big reasons. Oh, a native, that's anti-immigrant feeling, anti-immigrant. And some could be quite violent. Some of these nativist movements would be basically gangs that would beat the hell out of immigrants. And they would form their own gangs. There's kind of a cheesy movie that's about 20 years old called Gangs of New York that actually, if you get past the cheesy parts, is pretty accurate about those fights between nativists and immigrants. You must have seen it.
Well,
there's also a lot of cheese into it, but one of the things are, in the short run, what do immigrants do to jobs, especially wages in areas where there's a lot of unemployed workers? Yeah, if you have migrants who are leaving the farm because they could, because they're not making any money anymore, remember the mechanical reaper? And they go to the cities, and now they're competing with immigrants who are desperate too, wages drop. In the long run, immigration raises wages because it increases the market, it expands production of all kinds of new goods. In fact, if there weren't so many monopolies, at a time when there's no monopolies, it increases numbers of businesses. It's pretty amazing what immigration can do. But in the short run, especially if you don't have much and you see immigrants coming in that might drop your wages or take your job, it's hard to say, hey, 20 years from now, things will be better. Yeah, but, and then they're Catholics. And there's a lot of anti-Catholic bias. Remember, I've told you about the religious wars. Remember, that's why in the US Constitution, there's no religious test, and the First Amendment said there's cannot infringe on religion because they're so scared of the religious wars that happen in Europe between Protestants and Catholics. That's why this is a secular nation. The founding fathers did not want this to be a sectarian or religious state because partially of the anti-Catholic bias. And the thought was the Catholics would not truly be loyal to the United States. Who would they be loyal to?
The Pope.
As we all know, Catholics, if the Pope snaps their finger, they go. Right? Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, we all know that. Okay, of course it's not true. But the thought was they're not going to be really loyal to their country. They won't be loyal to their country. And so here we have this. Remember I mentioned the temperance? Drunken Irish drinking Irish whiskey, or drunken German drinking lager beer. And the thing about that is, lager, it's brewed differently and tastes a little bit different. And so the point was, it's not like what we drink here. They're wrong. There's something off with them, which is kind of fascinating when you look at it. And what are they calling? Do you see it? They're going to control our what? We're going to let them vote. And by the way, this nativist attitude about, and write this down, because I didn't put, that's why I have this down. The fear that they'll vote in these elections. They'll be allowed to vote. And these immigrants who are drunkards, or they're Catholic, or they're disease-ridden was another one they would say a lot. They'll come and take our elections. And this fear of immigrants voting continues on until about when? Now, it never ends. It's always a way to attack one party or the other. And here's a poorhouse. All the poor, diseased people. Now we've got to take them. Galway, neat little town in Ireland. And Native Americans, beware of foreign influence. I have no idea why the ends are backwards.
An Australian flag on the courthouse.
No. Australia has the Union Jack in a blue field with a constellation in it. Yeah.
It's really funny how they use that term Native Americans when we are immigrants ourselves and we slaughter the native people.
Who technically were immigrants too. I mean, it's very complex, isn't it?
Oh,
In fact, let's get to this great picture right here. Isn't that good?
That's very good.
Isn't that a good one? So here are these people, now they've made it, we've got ours, and they're trying to stop an immigrant coming in, and these are the shadows of their former self, and what were they? Do you see it? Isn't that a clever one? I like that one. In fact, I've been around a long time, and now it seems like the people who are immigrants to the United States are such hardworking, intelligent, determined people that it's not what we want.
I like how they're all black.
What?
Unless you have Native American blood, you're an immigrant to this country.
But many American Indians came. They came in 12. So it's just. So what does it even mean, Native?
They're all relatives.
Yeah, that's what does Native even mean?
The mammoths.
And here's a great one: the American River Ganges. It's from India, but we're trying to protect the people and who's coming. And look at the Pope. The Pope hat, yes. It's the Pontin's hat, yes. You see it? Do you see that?
Makes me really uncomfortable.
I mean, it should. It was meant to scare people who were not. It's meant to scare people who are Catholic. It's meant to shut them up. That's why they do things like this.
You can see his face.
And look at what happened to public schools, because the Catholics will make their own schools and will destroy education. Which is fascinating, because at the same time, we're going to see in Montana, you have
I mean, this is.
they want their own religious school. So it's an interesting thing. That's a very good, and that's from, by the way, remember Santa Claus? Same cartoonist, Thomas Nast. Huh? Must be.
He was trying to tell us something.
So out of this is going to come a political party by the 1850s. They're going to call themselves the American Party. Makes sense, right? But they can't, everybody referred to them as the Know-Nothings. Why the Know-Nothings? There was a secret society of nativists called the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner. Just listen to this. And secret society, so someone asked a member of it, say, what do you know about this group? You are supposed to say, I know nothing. And they were, the know-nothing here is, natives of the soil arise. Shall American labor be protected? And you can see the same things happen in nativist movements at the turn of the century, the 1920s, the 1970s, and today. So this is not a new thing. And to talk about building a wall, we see all kinds of imagery about building a wall to keep Chinese immigrants out in the 1890s. This is not new. This happens all the time. Is this a conservative or liberal idea? It's generally more conservative. Even you see people who, it's a conservative idea, but you see people who claim, they say they're being liberal because they don't want to they want to create this perfect state where people have independence, they have rights, they have, remember the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and inalienable rights. It's kind of a liberal document, the Declaration of Independence. And we don't want impure blood coming in and destroying that. So it's generally more conservative, but you have people who call themselves liberal, and that gets back to the point I've said before. There are conservative liberal ideas that they kind of blend, and people have bits of all of them. In fact, Romanticism is generally very conservative, and there are a lot of people who are liberal who also really like the Romantic era, Well, I should add, you know what the best example of a romantic movement is? Nazi Germany. Never thought you'd heard the term Nazis or romantics, but why? Let's go back to when Germany was a powerful and great country. Italy, fascism, same thing. So, attention, people. By the way, those were the glory days. Look at that. Look at them attentive. And notice the stick, notice the pointer, which could double as a what?
Beating stuff.
Now that, I'm romantic for that. The old days. When under the library, they used to beat students here. Okay, so with that, that I'm only being partially facetious. That's what they would take if they're going to be spanked. My principal in elementary school had 3 paddles on his wall.
They just had them, but they were just there to talk about what they were. They never actually loved them.
I never went up to me, of course, but I know people who are paddled. Okay, I would set up a couple of rules. I was framed. And yet, you know what the 3 paddles are? You probably 3 paddles. One big paddle, just a straight wooden paddle. Another one with a big hole drilled in it. And another one with a bunch of little holes. And you got to pick your poison. Which paddle? And I got into a fight over a football game. And I got paddled.
I love no hole.
Which one?
The one with no holes, yeah.
Because bigger surface area. More surface area.
If you have the holes, that allows for less, it doesn't block the air as you get found. Ready?
There's less space.
Don't you think that would be great to bring it back? I suggested at the first period, and they were just overjoyed.
I'm actually not a big fan of putting children. That's just me.
It would change assemblies. Okay, with that,
I think you should bring back like slapping your hands with the ruler.
now I never did that, but I did have a 6th grade teacher who would break rulers on your desk if you were screwing around. All right, so I know what you're thinking. I want to learn more about the Know-Nothing Party. Oh, by the way, the Know-Nothing Party almost became a 3rd party that survived, or the 2nd party. Remember, we have a 2-party state because it's winner take all. The Whig Party died, and it was a fight in 1856 between the Know-Nothings and the Republicans. Know-Nothings almost became that party. Almost became the 2nd party to the Democrats. I know what you want to do, though. We speak the same language. You want to write a thesis. All right, everybody. Practice thesis time. You're going to thesis for an essay. So here we go. Cover your nose. Your nose popped out. I got a stapler. I know it's tough to keep out, but. So we're going to write a thesis. Evaluate the following statement. The Industrial Revolution led to a series of reform movements in the United States before the Civil War. So you're going to do a practice thesis. That's all you're going to do. Write in your notes, write in the margin, and you got a couple minutes. Write it right now. Go. You're writing it right now. Let's go.
Like about what movements?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, this is an essay question. This is an essay question. So you're writing a practice thesis. So remember, you got to have the point of the question, your position, and then you need your blueprint. Remember your blueprint, that is the A, B, and C. Those are going to be your 3 paragraphs. The point of the question, the reform movements, U.S. And for those of you in the television audience, you got this too?
Bless you.
Remember, I've talked about a lot of reform movements. We've had women's rights. We've had children's. We've had, I didn't mention prison reform. I've mentioned public schools. I'm helping you out, obviously. I've mentioned labor movement, labor unions, temperance. Heck, didn't I talk about all the cities and needing police and things like that? The second great awakening and that religious reforms. The Protestant work ethic. So when you're done, go back and make sure you address the points of the question. You take a position. What was going on in the Industrial Revolution that would lead to all these changes? Something. It can be just very basic. And then the 3 points. We're in the 5-paragraph essay. You have it? 3 things? Yeah, I think so. We're on the 5-paragraph essay. So 3 years. Okay. You should. And remember, those 3 things would be the 3 topics of your paragraph. Good. Point, position, blueprint. Okay, I know I threw this at you. Yeah, you're gonna read the whole class. And no, I'm not going to trick you and say, wouldn't this be a great essay to write? I just like to practice this. Because if you can do that, you've organized your essay. You're going to get these your essay's ready to go. Okay, I know you got to do the work. We should be finishing up.
Carlin.
Oh, I'm waiting for everyone to finish. I'm going through your assignments. And so if I haven't got it, I'm starting to change those to zeros. I don't like to do it, but that's life. I'll give you a chance if you let me know, because I know this is a weird time, but. All right, let us go through a few of them. Who would like to read theirs first? John.
Yeah.
Yes.
The hardships in doing this that's rather than the form movements, such as movement.
Very good. You mentioned about the hardships and changes in society. The only thing you have to add is be very precise. As you should mention in the U.S. It's not a huge deal, but other than that, you have a very clear. I know exactly where you're going. Would anybody else like to read theirs? Go ahead.
The widespread changes that the United States Industrial Revolution brought led to a series of movements such as unionization, nativism, and women's rights in the United States before the Civil War.
Very good. Did you mention reform movement?
I said movements. I should have said reform.
I know it's not a big deal, but you just have to be very precise in your thesis. But that's good. I know exactly where you're going. One more. Anybody want to step up to the plate? Nobody? Who? Okay, before you go, this is what I quick wrote.
Very wordy, but good.
Yeah, but you know what? It's here at Social and Economic Foundation. That's my why. So everything will come back to all these changes. This is just practice. We will go through this. All right, there will be a reading assignment tomorrow. Probably a quiz coming up. It's pretty interesting stuff. The thing I like about it is you can really see direct lines through to today. You just can see them.
Actually, lived in Freud.
In where?
Freud.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's just a post office, basically.
Yeah. Used to be a little bigger, but now there's. You know, I was actually born up there in Plentywood in that part of the world. Many years ago.
Yeah. Then my dad got a job in, of all places, Fort Benning.
Oh, really?
From one small town to another.
Yeah, I was going to say your dad must have had a job there in Freud. He probably was the music teacher for every class. Fort Benton, I mean, still small, but deep place.
Yeah.
All right, clear out. You hit my ruler.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, good luck. You're number one on the list. Okay, shut this off. I'm coming.